Mike, you just gave a presentation to some Ontario corn and soybean growers. You talk about weed resistance.
Yes, sir.
What has been the experience in the South in terms of glyphosate resistance on weeds?
Well, the dependency that we have on glyphosate in the past, and actually the overusage of glyphosate has contributed to a significant problem that growers are fighting across the South in glyphosate-resistant weeds. And probably the most problematic weed that we have in the South would be Palmer amaranth. Of course, we do have mare's tail or Canadian fleabane, but we are getting a lot of different resistant weeds, but those two are the key problem weeds we're having.
Well, I listened to you talk about Palmer amaranth, and it sounds like the mother of all weeds.
Absolutely.
You painted a very bleak picture if you have to encounter this weed. Just very quickly talk about why is Palmer amaranth so just damaging and destructive?
Well, it's the characteristics of the plant, the growth habits of the plant, the ability to withstand drought, withstand heat. Palmer amaranth is actually native to the desert Southwest, so it can withstand a lot of drought stress. It can withstand a lot of heat stress. It's very, very prolific in that one plant can produce between 500,000 and 1 million seeds. So one plant produces that much. So when you talk about having escapes in a field, if you have 4 or 5 escaped plants and they go to seed, that can replenish or that can form a huge seed bank for next year.
And you had said that it's just so hard to kill. Over 4 inches, basically, it's a replant.
Yeah. Well, the issue is it is so resistant to herbicide modes of action that we have on the market today. We have to either catch it early, but the best way is to prevent it from ever coming up. And then, once you start clean, put down a good residual and then overlap those residuals to never see it. And that was one of the key points I made in there, was the fact that if you take one thing out of my talk, the best way to control resistant weeds is to never see them. So that means starting with a good residual program and then overlapping residual herbicides before they ever run out.
So I think one of the things that a lot of growers misinterpret about identifying weed resistance is that they think it's something that happens over time.
Right.
And you said today that is definitely not the case.
Well, the actual resistance, the actual biological resistance can happen over time, because weed resistance is inherent in the plant, and if we continually do the same thing over and over again, we are selecting for resistance. But when we start talking about the spread of resistant weeds, that's when it can happen very quickly, because when you have weeds like Palmer amaranth, or we talked about Canada fleabane, that can produce seed and travel long distances, those weeds can get there in high populations very quickly. And there are different modes of travel that weed resistance takes. So, such as cottonseed is a very good feed for livestock. Well, if we have resistant weed seed that comes in that cottonseed, we can bring the resistant weed into a population that it's normally not at. And once it's there, it's there. So that's what I meant by that, be very, very quick to happen. It can occur very quickly.
So in terms of management strategy, what should, if you're, and all growers should be concerned about it.
Sure.
You mentioned that was a very good point. What are some of the strategies that you should put into place on the farm to take care of this?
Well, one of the key things is we have to really change our mentality and our approach to weed management in agriculture. We have to start clean. We have to start early. What we've seen in a lot of cases was we had growers that would let fields grow up in the spring and then try to go out there and control some pretty good sized weeds. And we don't need to do that. We don't need to let those weeds get a lot of height on them. We need to control them when they're small, and then we need to start clean. And that means starting clean with a residual herbicide, and then, like I said, overlap an additional residual herbicide before the first application runs out.
Almost sounds like we're bringing the creativity back into weed management.
Absolutely. And that was one of the key slides that comes to my mind is is that I've seen as far as resistance is when we look at the dependence upon glyphosate that we've had. You look at the glyphosate usage as compared to other herbicides. We have used as much glyphosate in the past as the next 17 herbicides combined. So that's huge, and that picture is definitely starting to change now because we're having to bring older modes of action or older herbicides back into play, and it's actually causing us to have to do some thinking rather than just go out and spray glyphosate.
So the challenge here, though, is there a lot of new modes of action coming to market?
Absolutely not. And that was another point that we make when we talk about weed resistance is we have got to be really good stewards of the herbicides and the tools that we have now, because there are no new modes of action coming in the near future. Now, that's not to say that we are absolutely working on trying to develop new modes of action, but as far as this point in time, it's just not there. Now, there are some new technologies coming, such as Liberty Link soybeans and dicamba tolerant soybeans and then HPPD beans. There are different technologies coming, but we're still going to have to be good stewards of those technologies.
Mike, thanks a lot, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.